Matthew 6:25-33, the Message. If you decide for God, living a life of God worship, it follows that you don't fuss about what's on the table at mealtimes or whether the clothes in your closet are in fashion. There is far more to your life than the food you put in your stomach, more to your outer appearance than the clothes you hang on your body. Look at the birds, free and unfettered, not tied down to a job description, careless in the care of God, and you count far more to him than birds. Has anyone by fussing in front of the mirror ever gotten taller by so much as an inch? All this time and money wasted on fashion. Do you think it makes that much difference? Instead of looking at the fashions, walk out into the fields and look at the wildflowers. They never print or shop, but have you ever seen color and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never seen, don't you think he'll attend to you, take pride in you, do his best for you? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way he works fuss over these things, but you know love God and how he works. Steep your life into God reality, God initiative, God provision. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met.
There is forgiveness for all, Bonnie, but that might be stretching it. That jersey, that close to the altar of God, is scary stuff.
Yeah, why is it in the bag?
Yeah, exactly. Today we have a treat because we have a guest speaker helping with the sermon. I'm not sure if I should allow this guest speaker, because there may be 10 years of frustration, teasing, whatever to come out. Tracy said she'd help with the sermon today. And I said it's okay. I previewed what she's going to, you don't have to get up quite yet. I previewed what she was going to read and okayed it, but I'm not sure if there were some changes or there's some ad-libbing going on. But she came up with the idea, as we were talking about, I don't know if today's the anniversary or somewhere around here. It'll be it'll be 10 years we've been down here. So starting, I think the first Sunday in December we started officially, way back in 2005. So she thought it'd be fun to do a little reminiscing and then talking about what we're thankful for. So I said, yeah, that's a great idea. And then she said she wanted to help. I said, that's an even better idea. So she is going to help, and she put together a little slideshow that we'll let run through when she's giving her little spiel, and then I'll go after her and fix anything or correct any errors that she may have said in there. But before we get into the fun of that, we'll have a little audience participation after that, where we'll ask if you guys want to share just a couple things that you're thankful for. So if you want to think of a few things, you can. You don't have to share, obviously, but if you want to share a couple things that you're thankful for, you're more than welcome to do that. But first, before we get into that, I need to put my pastor hat on and talk a little bit about what's been going on in the world. I think before last week we had the terrorist attacks in Paris, and we had the accident with the trainer kid. And then we've had, of course, a few other things happening since then with the hotel in Mali and all that stuff around the world. And we talked a little bit in Group 316 about, after we put together our shoeboxes, about living in a scary world. We had a video that talked about why God lets bad things happen, which there probably is no real satisfactory answer of why bad things happen. But kind of the gist of the video at the end is kind of what we're responsible for is how we react when bad things happen. And I thought about my response when I saw those terrorist attacks, and then you hear all the talk about, refugees coming in, put a fence around, keep everybody out, all stuff like that. And I got to be thinking, as I put on my dad hat, I think, yeah, sometimes when I hear those noises, I just like to wrap my boys in a blanket, keep them home, keep them safe, and I'd like to curl up in a ball sometimes myself and just suck my thumb. But it's kind of weird seeing a grown man suck his thumb for one thing, but two, it's fear that makes me want to do that, right? I'm scared. Because the world is a scary place. There's no doubt about it. Bad things happen for no reason to good people. And there's no answer about why it happens. Sure, we can think of reasons and consequences and causes, but ultimately why God allows it to happen, I don't know. I can get into a theological discussion about maybe why, if you're interested sometime. But the truth is, we'll have to ask Him when we see Him sometime if there's a reason. But what I'm interested in is, what is our response when we have that fear? And as corny as it sounds, and the bracelets that used to be bracelets that used to be seen years ago, that WWJD or what would Jesus do? I don't know if those bracelets were as comforting as they should be. Because what Jesus did when He was alive got Him killed, eventually. I mean, He was radical enough and He was out there enough that His actions made enough people angry where He was eventually killed for what He was doing. So what would Jesus do? What would His response to be to all of this, to our lives? Should we live them in fear? Should we round up everybody that's different, make sure we keep tabs on them? Should we close ourselves down and don't let anybody in that might be dangerous? What should we do? I don't know if there's a great answer. I do know there's a verse in the Bible, Matthew 25, when Jesus talks about clothing or taking care of the least of these. When He talks about feeding the hungry, feeding the poor, and feeding the helpless. And He says, when you do that to the least of these, you do that to me. He says, when you don't do that to the least of these, He says, you reject me. So what does that say about what our response is? I know if my response is strictly out of fear, I certainly want to keep everybody away that's bad. Right? Everybody that's different, keep them away. Keep myself safe. Don't let anybody else come and hurt us, right? But is that the loving response that Jesus would ask of us? Jesus spent a lot of His time with the least of these in society. Maybe the vast majority of it, from eating with tax collectors and sinners, prostitutes, adulteresses, foreigners, foreign women at His time, people that would be considered, by any stretch, the least of these. So what does that tell us? I think it tells us to be careful. I don't know if there's an easy answer on how we let people in, if you want to talk about the politics of letting refugees in or keeping them out. But I think we need to be careful when it becomes an us versus them thing. That's what I try to tell the kids in youth group. It doesn't mean we don't do things and be prudent to keep ourselves safe. That's just silly to think we just open our arms or whatever to everything, at our homes, in our country, or whatever. But I don't think it means we just shut everything down either and keep everybody out. I think what it means for me, what I can say for me, is it makes me think twice when that fear creeps up. And I start to think, well, all of those people are bad. Whoever those people might be. Syrian refugees, Muslims, anybody different than me, Packer fans, stuff like that. But anytime it becomes an us versus them, I'm right, they're wrong, period. I know that's when I get nervous. Because that's certainly not what Jesus would do. There is no us and them in Jesus. He went around and He talked to everybody. He didn't spend His time with the holy Christians. He probably wouldn't have been found in church very much on a Sunday worshiping or a Saturday worshiping for Him. But He was out and about amongst the people, the least of these, showing them love, killing them with kindness, as Tracy likes to say. Showing them exactly what the love of God is, as Bonnie said in her sermon. God never gives up on us or anybody. He loves you and me as much as He loves anybody else in the world. Everybody in the world. Everybody's a child of God. And what I think, and my response to that needs to be, and I think the challenge to us is, let's remember that when we're thinking about others too. That they're a child of God just as much as we are. Does that mean there's easy answers on some of these questions? It certainly doesn't. But I think it needs to be a balance between that. It's not just black and white. It's not just us versus them. So I think if we can keep that in mind, it might help a little bit in some of our discussions. And it will certainly help us be more loving. Because I think that's primarily what Jesus would do. is err on the side of love. A little nervous. It's your turn.
All right, so I thought this was a good idea when I mentioned it to Brian on Monday, but I'm not a public speaker, so please bear with me. Hopefully I can make it through. And I put this slideshow together kind of all the different things that have happened at our church and in our community. It's check airflow, I don't know what that means, but hopefully that goes away. But I just wanted to talk about the 10 years that we have been here. I can't believe that it has been 10 years. But when Brian and I started looking for a church, we decided we would do the states that bordered Minnesota so we could stay fairly close to our family. We started praying that God would open a door to where He wanted us to go. I remember driving to Minden and wondering where the heck we were going and what God was going to do with us there. When we arrived at the church, we met a number of very friendly and excited people there. We got an hour-and-a-half tour of Pot County, which included going to Arrowhead Park, where they showed us their rather large lake. And being from Minnesota, we thought that was fairly funny because you can throw a rock across the lake, and that's what they considered a lake. Where in Minnesota, you could hardly even see the other side of the lake. But they were very, very proud of their community and what a great community that it is. And we're so excited to be a part of that. But Brian ended up preaching on that Sunday, and almost right away after the church service, that's Brian doing Dancing with the Stars. That's my little revenge. I know a lot of people are like, Tracy, are you going to get up there and give a sermon and get back at Brian for all the things he has done to you or said to you? But I put a few funny pictures in there, so. But after our sermon on Sunday, on Sunday we candidated down here, the search committee came up to us right almost immediately after he finished and was like, hey, can you guys come to Minden? I was shocked. I couldn't believe that this was happening. But I knew that God was behind this and that He would take care of us. Within a month, we had sold our house in St. Paul, Minnesota, said our goodbyes to family and friends, and it was just me and Brian moving to Iowa. What were we thinking? I had never wanted to be an Iowa girl, and now I was moving to Iowa. But hold on, sorry, I'm getting teary-eyed and I can't read my notes. I could not believe it was happening. What were we thinking? I wanted to have faith that God was going to do amazing things in our life, and hopefully in the church as well, but I was scared. I had always been with my family and friends close by my entire life, and now we were moving 6+ hours away from our family and our friends, and we were expecting a baby, our first baby. I was 3 months pregnant when we moved here, and I couldn't believe we were leaving my mom when I was only probably 30 minutes away from her at that time. But I guess God had some great plans for me. I remember being an emotional basket case, leaving all of my friends and family and moving those 6 hours away. I had grown to love having my friends, my family, and my job so close. It was my comfort zone. I remember many nights laying in bed crying and praying to God that He would bring friends, ladies into my life. I was so lonely and homesick for my friends and family in Minnesota. But now that I look back, I know God knew what He was doing. That Sunday in church, Sarah Arnold approached me about helping with the playground for the city park. I was so excited. Finally, something to do and a chance to be involved in the community and to get to know people better, and in the end, to meet some amazing ladies that are probably some of the best friends that I have here in Minden. I am so blessed and thankful that God placed us in this church and this community. I thought when we moved here 10 years ago that we would be here maybe 3 years, max 5. That we would then move closer to family and friends and everything would be good. But now, I can't even imagine moving our family away from Minden. It has become our home, our community, and our church. God has blessed us with such a supportive church family that lets us try any and all crazy things we come up with. I have learned a lot in these past 10 years, But the biggest thing I have learned is that if we are faithful and we follow God's calling, He will bless us more than we could ever imagine. He is faithful and a loving God, and He's waiting to bless all of us. So in closing, thank you so much for opening up your church, your community, and your lives to us. We feel so blessed to have been part of the past 10 years, and we're excited to see what God has planned for the next 10 years. And this reminded me, when we moved into the parsonage, I cried because I don't think parsonage had been cleaned for a really long time. And I think Karen Hunt and Helen Kaiser were really, really embarrassed that it wasn't clean before we moved in. But they were so nice, and they came that first day and helped clean our house. And I still remember the first Thanksgiving we had here. We couldn't even make a turkey because the oven was like an apartment-sized oven. We couldn't close the door to bake our turkey. And again, I was an emotional basket case, like, Brian, why are we here? But thank you all for the things that you guys have let us do to the parsonage, to this church, to this community. We feel so loved and so blessed by all of you, and we can't thank you enough for supporting us.
I think your direct quote after your first walk to the parsonage was, "I am not living in that house." Did you see the partially? I did.
Yeah, the parsonage has changed. I don't remember it being like that.
The light blue bathroom with the pink shower curtain, that was awesome. There's also a blue shade carpet in a blue bedroom and a pink bedroom for a boy and a girl. Lots of changes. We painted them.
You got the pink one.
Isaac actually, he is in the one that was pink, but there's a picture that comes through there. Yeah, that was pretty funny to close that. We tried to close that oven door. Oh, I guess we won't worry about making a turkey this year. I was going to talk about how lucky that I feel. I spent yesterday in an incredibly boring training. One of those necessary trainings you get to go to for your job about boundaries and all this good stuff. Necessary, but really boring. But anytime a group of ministers gets together, it's usually a competition about who can complain about their church the most. About who said what, or who's doing this, or that kind of stuff. And it has never failed in probably the 10 years where I always sit there and I wonder, well, usually two thoughts go through my mind. One is, I might be doing something wrong because I usually don't have 10% of the issues that they're talking about. And two, how lucky it is of the church family, the community I get to serve. I was thinking, we had one discussion, who knows remembers when, but they talked about how once a month the board walks through the parsonage and checks out what's going on. I thought, wow, that's amazing. I don't think anyone's even bothered with that, but people will talk about church members that will just stop by, knock on the door. I mean, when we live across the lawn from the church, which is usually a nightmare scenario about people just stepping in at any time. Or people will talk about they want to try something in the worship service, or they want to try some kind of ministry, and it ends up becoming some huge fight over something silly. If you remember, one Sunday we opened the curtains. That's been a few years ago. And then another Sunday the curtains were magically down. And now we got banners up there. But those were kind of done just on the whim of the pastor and his wife. I'll throw Tracy under that bus with me there too. And we're still here. We weren't burned at the stake. But you'll be amazed at what the stories I'll hear now. And I just think to myself how lucky it truly is to be able to be in a place where we can try things. And I have no delusions that everything we've tried has went over well, and everyone has liked things that we've done or things that we've said or stuff like, or anything like that. But how great it is to be able to be in a place where we can mess up, try things like Tracy said. Our kids can be relatively normal. You'd be amazed at the stories I hear of people having church members come up to them and say, "I can't believe your kid wore this on Sunday," or "Did you see what your kid did in school?" Yeah, he's human. I mean, Isaac's a little stinker sometimes. Alex, he's fine, but Isaac. Oh, he's still, I thought you were the children's church guy. I don't know why you would have any kind of issues, but how lucky we are that we're able to just kind of be. And I think about, too, my ability to be able to mess around and do stuff for the fire department. People don't call or stop and say, you know, hey, you're not in your office. The exact number of hours need to be set there. They don't check in and say, you know, why aren't you doing this? Or they don't talk about how the coffee was too cold on Sunday morning. At least not to me. They might complain to other people, but I don't hear it. And I don't think I truly appreciate how lucky I have that. And the only thing I wrap up with, Tracy said she was pretty nice to me. Doesn't mean I have to be nice in the next 10 years. Sometimes examples are just too good to use. But she's right. The easy thing would have been to stay close to family. And that was a 3-hour tour of Pot County. I think Carol was involved in that. We were in Lynn Manhart's Lincoln Town Car. We had just driven 6 hours from Minneapolis. And we got to, and they were excited, and it was great, and it was neat to see that. We got to see the lake. We got to see the big old house south of town that looks like an insane asylum out there. And I think we ate at Spaghetti Works or something downtown. That was a long 3 hours after a 3-hour ride. But it was fun, and it was exciting to see how excited they were about their community and their area. But it would have been easy just to stay closer to family. I think we interviewed at one more church just outside of Minneapolis, a Delano church in a suburb. And it was pretty clear of what the right choice would be. So it's just one example from our lives, and I think that all of us can learn from is sometimes you take the risk and follow what God's asking, and the blessings, the way it turns out, couldn't be anticipated. Sometimes you've got to risk a little bit to be able to let God bless you in that same way. So, along that lines, I was going to ask if any of you wanted to stand or say an opportunity to say things that you're thankful for over this past year. Just to kind of remind us as we begin this Thanksgiving season, that it's not already the holiday shopping season, but it's going to be Thanksgiving first. So just an opportunity to share things you're thankful for to kind of get us in that mindset. Hold on. Emily, or Molly, would you be a runner for me so that people can hear with the mic?
Let's go first. I'm along with everybody else, my family, my friends, but also the church family. Our family, I've been in this church since I was baptized in the old church and I was over here. And anytime, there's been good times and bad times in our family, but you know what? Our church family has always been there for us. And that is something that you can really be thankful for. And that's a lot about coming to church on Sunday morning and just being here and just knowing somebody else cares. There's something going on and you can visit. You're just like family. You are. You're not only church family, you're family. And it's really pretty neat. And it's neat having Pastor Brian and Tracy and Isaac, even though he is a little longer than I.
Well, as most of you know, Jason works out of town most of the year, about 9 or 10 months. But this year he is getting laid off sooner than normal. So I am thankful that we will get to have him home for the rest of the year and hopefully summers. So having it all together and bringing back that fulfillment of family in our house.
I'm thankful for the church community here in Minden. We came here just a few more years before Brian and Tracy did. We did church all fixed in. When me and Amanda first came here, the first time we were sitting in the back, it was just us, a couple, and Carol, and
When I moved here from Logan, I had went to the Christian church in Logan, and I really liked that church. So, but I didn't really want to drive every Sunday to Logan because I already worked in Logan 5 days a week. So we came here, and they didn't have a church home either, and we started coming here, and I'm really thankful for Brian and Tracy. You have a wonderful church, and it's been amazing to watch how many young people have started coming here, even since we started, and my kids like coming home and coming to church here also. And I just want to say I'm thankful for my family and all of you here in this church.
We came here first because Tracy Facebooked my mom and asked her to learn to sing in a circus. And I'm really thankful for the support of this church family as I've gotten to go on and do cool stuff with y'all and other things.
Amen.